Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the MMA slate for tonight. And it's going to be an interesting approach because, at least for what I'm doing tonight, I'm only playing 12 lineups. So you're probably not going to see me with multiple exposure to any fight. But we'll see how that goes. Sometimes if there's a fight that is of particular interest, meaning that there's a really good chance that it does not go the distance, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's low owned or maybe it's supposed to be close. I'll take multiple exposures from that fight. I'll take fighters from both sides. But with only, I think it's going to be 12 lineups or maybe 10 lineups with some in multiple contests. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. So here's going to be the process behind MMA this week. And it's really becoming my process overall for MMA, which has been pretty successful actually, is there's several layers of analysis here. The first thing you do is you identify the fights that you want to look at. In other words, which fights are going to be likely to finish early, okay, or have good volume in general. Then what you want to do is take your core plays overall, and that's really not that difficult to figure out, either through your own analysis, through looking at Vegas odds, through looking at other content or whatever. Again, as I talk about in DFS, finding good plays is usually not very difficult, but figuring out how to combine them with to make good lineups with good ownership leverage is really what separates good DFS players from average ones. So what I do is I have kind of my core-ish type plays, and then I will just kind of look and see where expected ownership comes in, and I will probably default to those which have the lowest owned of them all. Now, as I've mentioned in MMA, it becomes, it's a very tricky sport to play because you almost by mathematical order have to play underdogs every single slate, because usually there's a couple of really good favorites you don't want to fade, and you have to pay for them. So to fill out lineups, you are going to have to play some underdogs. So you're just going to have to kind of come to peace with that, make peace with that, and just hope that you pick the right ones. Let's put it that way. But sometimes construction can go that if you really, really love 3 or so favorites, you could just jam those favorites in and then just kind of sprinkle out all different types of underdogs if you don't have any strong opinions on them. What I prefer to do is find the live underdogs that are simply low owned. And now, again, what you might be thinking is, well, you know what you should do, Eric? Why don't you find fights that rate to be very active, in other words, key fights, also players you like, and also have them be underdogs, and also have them be low owned? Oh, well, great, nice work if you can get it. And that is what you are looking for, but it's always not that easy. So let's go back, and I'm going to highlight the key fights, and then I'm going to highlight what I think the live underdogs are and the kind of solid plays, and see if you get any overlap. See if you can find some low-owned dogs or low-owned plays that are from key fights or whatever. So let's first talk about the key fights, and this is usually based on the odds of fights finishing within the distance, which are readily available anywhere, honestly. So the first fight that's going to be very difficult to fade is going to be the main event, the Figueiredo and Benavidez. And you'll forgive me for my mispronunciation of these names. It's going to be an active fight. It's 5 rounds possible. So there's this is a fight that it's going to be very, very, very difficult to fade. And I think both sides are going to be pretty highly owned. I do think that Figueiredo is a very strong core play, so it definitely falls into 2 of those categories: core play, key fight. Problem is going to be ownership, so you can't get everything. Probably over 50% owned, but again, if the rest of your lineup can offset that, then it's possible to key in. The second key fight here is going to be this Delize versus Ibragimov fight. And again, it just from the odds, it rates to finish inside the distance. It rates to be a very active fight. So this is a fight you want to key. Now, I didn't regard Dolidze as, actually I did regard him as kind of a core play, and yet also I think that Ibrahimov is threatens to be a live underdog also. So this might end up being a fight that I have guys from both sides. And then you kind of look at ownership here. The favorite, let's call him that, it's about 33%, so nothing, not a great ownership play there. But the underdog is actually rates to be one of the lower owned underdogs. So I am going to look to get him in some lineups. The other fights are Askar Pantova. And again, I'm just going to Pantoja. And that rates to be a fight that you want to kind of look at. And also Pantova is probably a good play in and of himself. So again, the problem is that Pantoja has 33% owned, which is not the end of the world. But again, so he's a guy that both is kind of a safe play, and also it rates to finish inside the distance, one of the key fights. So this is another one you want to kind of key on. So Pantoja, maybe Fig, and one of these Dolidze, or Ibri, let's just call him that, if you needed to finish your lineup off. The last fight is the Gordon fight against Albazi. Again, this is just from the odds of what's going to be finished, what rates to finish inside. There's also the Duffy fight, which I'll get to in a minute. But Gordon Albazi is another kind of key fight here. And what's interesting here is that Gordon rates to be kind of a live dog, and yet rates to be very low owned. So Gordon is actually another guy that I want to kind of put in my main lineup and make sure that I get a decent amount of him throughout my 10 or so lineups. So this Duffy fight, it rates to finish inside the distance. Duffy rates to be a big favorite. And the thing is that he hasn't really gotten a lot of love and ownership through the community. For someone who's one of the bigger favorites on the slate, he's probably the 15th or so highest owned. So I am going to probably get some of him. So I have to remember when I do this lineup build to make sure to get some Duffy, because I think he's going a little lower owned than maybe he should. So we talked about the key fights. The core plays, I mentioned a couple of them. Figueroa, Pandov is good. And kind of another one who is rates to be kind of on the low owned side is the Diakiese. Now, he doesn't fit into the category of being one of the fights rating to finish early, but at only 8,500, he is a big enough favorite where I think he can, I talk about this in basketball. You want to have a combination of high variance and kind of medium variance within your lineups, and I think Diakiese could be a guy to make that work. So talked about key fights, talked about the, kind of the safer plays. We talked about two of the underdogs we liked. One was Gordon and one was maybe from the Ibragana fight. The other two or three is one of them is going to be this name I can get right, okay, is going to be Johns. So he I can get right against Montel Jackson. He rates to be kind of a live dog also. So not only does he rate to be a live dog, but he also rates to be kind of low owned. So I'm going to make sure to get him in some lineups. We mentioned Gordon already. We mentioned Ibri, of course, and two others that you might want to get some of is Narimani. Again, he's 7K, rates to be very low owned, and to make your lineups work, you have to take shots with guys like this. So Narimani. The last kind of live dog that I kind of identified is in this Lipsky Carolina fight. Carolina might be an okay low-owned option. People don't like to play these women fights, and it's actually not not some of the better women fighters either. On the other hand, Carolina had a broken wrist or something, or a broken back, something that she had, which, as I sit here myself with a very, very disgusting back right now, I couldn't imagine going to fight anybody. and she's going to be pretty highly owned. So I think that Carolina is my least favorite of the underdogs. So putting it all together, right? We like from the safer plays again, the Fig, Pantov. I gotta do better with either these pronunciations or give them better nicknames. Olidze, Diakiese, key fights again. If you want to get multiple exposure, you would go and get the Ibri, who's also a lone, a good a good underdog play. Duffy, you want to get some of, and if this Arazi Gordon fight, if Gordon is both a live dog and from the key fight, I think that Gordon is someone that you want to have some of. So in 12 lineups, let's see who I think by my nature, I'm going to end up with 100% of somebody, maybe 2 or 3 guys. So we're going to figure out who that is. It looks like it's going to probably end up being Figueiredo because, again, I didn't feel as though I needed to get any of the underdog. It's from a key fight. Ownership is not the greatest, but this fight is very, very difficult to fade. So why don't we do this? Let's see if we can finagle around a little bit and give ourselves some diversification so we don't have 12 lineups exactly the same. So the first thing I talked about was getting some of Duffy. So let's take care of that first. So if we put Duffy in over here, all right, what we then probably have to do is go down and either, maybe get rid of some Diakiese or Dolidze, one of these guys, and let's see who we do not have any of yet. So we have the Olidze as our core in our lineup. Fig we have already. Pantov, we do not have Pantov. I think we got rid of that one. But let's just see. Pantoja, I'm sorry. So Pantoja's 8,800. Can we do it with just one fell swoop? No, we can't because we only save 100 that way. Okay, and we're already pretty cheap here with Gordon and Namani. So it looks like we're not going to be able to do it that way. But what you could do is you could start by making this a fight where this is a lineup where you throw the underdog and the Dolidze fight in. And then what you could do is move up from Gordon or Namani. So if you wanted to do that, now you can get to Pantoja over here. Okay, so this is the way you get the guys you want, and you get Duffy as well. Now again, you could do all this with an optimizer, okay, but I do think that you should get in the habit of learning how to do these things, manually, okay, because you're seeing what you're giving up and you're kind of visualizing. Again, for 150 lineups, you're not going to be able to get that done, okay. So here's a question. Do I just do one or do I do 2 lineups with this construction? So let's do 2 for now. And we're going to stick with 2 of them in the I call it the Millie Maker, even though it's not a Millie Maker. So what we've done is we've given ourselves a little less Gordon and a little less Dolidze. Right? And we've given ourselves some Duffy off of our main lineup. Let's just take a look at ownership again. So we do have 100% Pantoja. So let's get rid of him. And let's then take this one, and we'll take Narimani out. All right. And let's see what that does for us. So we haven't put in the next best long shot yet, which was going to be John's. Let's put him in. Okay. If we put him in, then once again, we have Fig, we have Diakiese, we have Dolidze, and so we have 4 of our keys in here. No, this is where we don't have the Pantoja. So let's see if what we can do about this. See, it looks as though, see, now is where I could put Carolina in as even though it's 33%, this might end up being a lot lower owned because I have Johns in here also, right? So let's see. It looks as though I still can get away with this. So I still think I end up back with, see, it looks like Pantoja. Or you know what you could do? Since the Albazi-Gordon fight is a key fight, we could actually pivot away from Gordon onto Albazi. Okay, so that's what you could do with this lineup. This is actually kind of a neat build here. So let's put that one in like that. So it's going to look like these guys are going to be almost 100%. So you want to pivot off of Diakiese for a little bit. So let's do that. So I think what we're headed towards here are more Duffy lineups. So let's put another Duffy in here. I don't want to get all of them with Duffy. We can go 33% Duffy. We can certainly do that. So if we did this, and then we'll do another lineup with kind of that live dog that okay. And we could do another one where we fade Gordon. Because remember, this is a key fight, so we can get away with doing this. Okay. So we'll put two lineups in like this. So we're already doing some business here. We're already starting to trim down a little bit. Now, again, I'm just noticing right off the bat that I have almost 90% Narimani, and I only have one lineup with Johns, for example. So that's the next thing I want to do. Let's just try to do mass replacing if we can of Johns. So let's do that. And let's do a full, I think I want just as much exposure on Johns as Narimani. That would be for sure. Let's even do another one. Let's go over here. No, that one doesn't work because, again, we have 100 extra. And we put Johns in over here. This looks good. So now we have the same amount of Narimani as we do out of Johns. So now I'm kind of eyeing my live dogs here. So I have Johns, I have Narimani, and what I'd like to have is the same amount also of Ibri and Gordon. So right now, 58% Gordon is fine, but I only have 33% Ibrigani. So we should replace some Gordon with some of him. So let's put. So if we do that, okay, then obviously we don't want Dolizzi in there also, and now we can go back and get more Duffy. So Duffy is actually becoming kind of an important guy to have because, his projection is good. He rates to do well. And so now if you get 50% Duffy, that allows you to get 50% Ibra, you know what I mean? So this actually is pretty important. I now have the ownership in these underdogs relatively equal between Johns, Gordon, Ibri, and Nariman. And with respect to Carolina, we don't even need to really use her. We do have one lineup with her, but again, she's at 33%. She's the least important of the underdogs to put in. Now let's take a quick look at what we have here. So we have 100% Figueiredo, which I'll live with. 92% Pantova, which is fine. I guess I'd like to probably trim that a little, maybe. The Diakiese, 83% is fine. Olidze, I just got to make sure that we don't have any that all the fights with, you know what I mean, his opponent. So maybe a little more Dolidze, sorry. So maybe what we could do, if we could put, let's look at price for a second. So if Dolidze's 8,900 and Diakiese's 8,500, if there's anything with 400 more available, which there isn't, I would say maybe get a little more of that. But Diakiese is fine. I mean, is lower owned, and I have no problem taking a big position on him. So I'm just kind of looking at this, and all right, so here's something that we probably should do. So Pantoja Askar is a key fight. So maybe we should do maybe one lineup from the other side, because Askar is going to be probably really low owned. So if we did that, then what you could do is a little less Diakiese. Okay. And you can get this lineup with a little more of that. Makes sense? And then what you could do is, this looks good. So this is one little leverage against Pantoja because it is a key play. And this is where we can get one more Carolina. This makes sense. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Good. So again, we eyeball it here. So Diakiese, now we're getting a little less of him. We do have one lineup with Pantoja's opponent. Do we have enough of Albazi? Albazi 25% compared to Gordon's 42. That's fine by me. Ibragimov 42% versus Dolidze's 58. That's fine. Do we need to have one lineup or so with the underdog in the Figueroa fight or the Figueiredo fight? I guess. Okay, so what we can do is, okay, so Narimani is probably the one I'm least confident of as far as his underdogs, and it's probably also the least owned. So we could beef these up a little bit. So let's do that. Let's take in this fight, in this one here, we'll fade. We won't fade the main event, but we'll fade the favorite there. And then we'll go back to a little more Diakiese, and we'll do that. Okay? Is that fair enough? Good. And then we'll do the same thing over here. That's fair. And then, oh, you know what we can do in this one? Do one lineup where we play them both. There you go. That's what we're going to do. Do one lineup where we stack them both. That's the idea. Okay. So just eyeballing this again. It's looking pretty good. Core plays look like we're getting them. We're getting pretty decent spread out ownership of the underdogs. Johns, Gordon, Narimani. Carolina, again, it's kind of fishy. Now let's see if we even need to whittle down these. Yeah, this one we need to get rid of one. We need to diversify one. This one we're fine. And this one we need to whittle down a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just get eyeball it. Diakiese maybe a little too much. Pantoja maybe a little too much. So let's do that, and let's get rid of Diakiese in one lineup here, and let's just go for someone we don't have any of. So we'll either Gastelum. You can go back to Albazi. No, but then that's stacking that fight, which I don't want to do. We could do this. We don't have any of the Spivak fights, so let's put one of Spivak here. That makes sense. So this one's good. This one. Again, one less Pantoja. And let's, again, pick out someone we don't have any of. One more Spivak. You want to do that? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, very good. And that's how we do it. I think we have a good mix of, well, first of all, our lineups reflect our opinions, which is very strong, meaning that you can get good low owned, you have a good combination of guys you like that are low owned that kind of go well together. And I think this is a very, very strong build. Now, again, you have to have some faith in some of these underdogs and embrace the variance a little bit, but um, that's just what I'm doing, and hopefully it works out. I'm doing pretty well with this stuff recently, and I'm going to miss spending as much time on this when baseball and basketball comes, but who knows? Maybe I'll become one of those MMA, NASCAR, golf experts forever and screw football, baseball, and basketball. I doubt it, but we'll see. Good luck to everybody, and have a good weekend.